Have you ever wondered how a massive modern airplane, filled with passengers, can simply vanish from the sky without a trace? This isn't fiction. It actually happened. The story begins on the 8th of March, 2014. Just after midnight, at 12:42 in the morning, Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur, heading for Beijing. It was a routine flight, one that should have lasted just under 6 hours. On board were 227 passengers, 10 flight attendants, and 2 pilots. At the controls was Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a 53-year-old highly respected and experienced captain. Sitting beside him was 27-year-old First Officer Farik Hamid on one of his final training flights before becoming a fully certified pilot. For the first 20 minutes, everything seemed perfectly normal. At 1:08 MIT, as the plane crossed the Malaysian coastline and flew above the South China Sea, Captain Zahari radioed that the plane was cruising at 35,000 feet. Smooth flight, clear skies, nothing unusual. 11 minutes later, as the jet entered Vietnamese airspace, Kuala Lumpur air traffic controllers instructed the pilots to switch frequencies and contact Ho Chi Minh. Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night, Zahari calmly replied. Good night, MAS 370. Everything sounded normal. But chillingly, these were the last words anyone would ever hear from MH370. After this moment, silence. The plane stopped responding, and within minutes, it vanished from civilian radar screens. At first, no one realized the gravity of the situation. Air traffic control in Kuala Lumpur assumed the plane had simply passed into Vietnam's radar zone. Meanwhile, in Vietnam, controllers saw MH370 enter their airspace and then disappear instantly. They tried to contact the plane repeatedly for 18 long minutes, but there was no reply. Eventually, they alerted Kuala Lumpur. Hours passed before anyone treated this as an emergency. Regulations say rescue authorities should be notified within an hour of a disappearance, but in this case, more than 4 hours passed before Malaysia declared an emergency. By that time, MH370 should already have landed in Beijing. Instead, the world was waking up to the breaking news. A Boeing 777 carrying hundreds of people had disappeared without explanation. The first search operations began in the South China Sea, along the direct route between Malaysia and Beijing. 34 ships and 28 aircraft from 7 different nations scoured the waters. Yet not a single piece of debris was found. Then, 4 days later, a shocking revelation changed everything. Military radar data showed that MH370 had not gone down over the South China Sea at all. Instead, after disappearing from civilian radar, it had turned sharply west, flown back across the Malay Peninsula, and continued flying for more than an hour. At 2:22 military radar tracked it near the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, far from its intended path to Beijing. This revelation sparked chaos. If the plane turned west, where was it going? Had it crashed in the Himalayas, somewhere in Central Asia, or deep in the Indian Ocean? More evidence emerged from satellites. The plane had been automatically trying to connect with a satellite, creating what investigators called handshakes. These weren't location signals, but attempts at communication, like a phone trying to reconnect to Wi-Fi. Scientists analyzed these pings and created possible arcs on the map where the plane could have been. The final ping came more than 6 hours after the plane's last contact. That meant MH370 kept flying for hours after it disappeared from radar. The analysis led investigators to a heartbreaking conclusion. The plane likely crashed somewhere along a vast curve called the 7th Arc, deep in the remote southern Indian Ocean, about 2,000 kilometers west of Australia. Search operations were expanded there, covering tens of thousands of square kilometers. Ships and aircraft scanned the ocean surface, and later, advanced sonar equipment was used to scan the seabed. Despite being the largest and most expensive search in aviation history, costing over $160 million, years of searching yielded nothing. In 2015, a small breakthrough came when a piece of wing known as a flaproom washed up on the shore of Reunion Island, east of Madagascar. More fragments would later be found on other Indian Ocean islands, confirming the plane had indeed crashed. But still, the main wreckage remained hidden. And before I reveal the most shocking theories about what really happened to MH370, take a second to imagine the families. For them, every day was a nightmare. No answers, no closure, just endless uncertainty. If you want to keep following stories like this, mysteries that still haunt the world, make sure you subscribe right now. You don't want to miss what comes next. Even with fragments discovered, the mystery of MH370 only deepened. Who or what caused the disappearance? Investigators looked at every possibility. One theory pointed to Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. Some suggested he deliberately diverted the plane and crashed it into the ocean, either due to personal issues or a suicidal mission. Supporting this suspicion were a few strange details. The sharp manual turn of the plane after leaving Vietnamese airspace, the unusual route along the border of Thailand and Malaysia that seemed to avoid radar detection, and a troubling discovery at his home. Zahari had a personal flight simulator, and one simulated route he practiced eerily resembled the actual path MH370 took before vanishing. But investigators were not convinced. Zahari had no financial troubles, no family disputes, no history of mental illness. Colleagues and friends described him as calm, professional, and deeply respected. To suggest he would murder hundreds of people seemed unfair without hard proof. Another theory focused on possible hijackers. Suspicion initially fell on two Iranian men traveling on stolen passports. Could they have been terrorists? But investigation revealed they were simply trying to reach Europe and seek asylum. Interpol confirmed there was no link to terrorism. The third and most widely accepted theory is more tragic and less sinister. Investigators believe there may have been a sudden loss of oxygen in the cabin, rendering everyone on board unconscious. The plane would have continued flying on autopilot until its fuel ran out, then plunged into the Indian Ocean. How this loss of oxygen occurred is still debated. Some suggest an electrical fire. Others think of a catastrophic technical failure. Either way, this ghost flight theory explains why no distress call was made, why the plane turned back, and why it continued flying for hours without communication. But if the plane was on autopilot, why wasn't it found in the massive search? That's where things become even stranger. In 2018, a private company called Ocean Infinity launched a no-find, no-fee search. Using advanced underwater drones, they mapped the seafloor around the seventh arc. They found mountains, cliffs, and even underwater volcanoes, but no trace of the plane. The mission, like those before it, ended in failure. Then, in 2022, a retired aerospace engineer named Richard Godfrey claimed he had cracked the mystery. Using a technique called WSPR, which tracks disturbances in radio signals bouncing around the globe, he mapped MH370's final flight path. According to his data, the plane lies exactly along the seventh arc, 4 kilometers beneath the surface of the ocean. He pinpointed a location with remarkable confidence, suggesting that a new search within a 40 nautical mile radius could finally locate the wreckage. Some experts support his findings, others are skeptical. But his analysis, combined with drift studies that matched the discovery of debris on distant islands, suggests the mystery may finally be solvable. Yet, as of today, the wreckage has still not been found. For the families, this remains unbearable. They've waited years, clinging to fragments of hope, desperate for closure. For the world, MH370 is a haunting reminder of how vulnerable we still are. In an age of satellites, GPS, and advanced technology, A giant jetliner with hundreds of lives can still vanish without explanation. Think about that for a moment. Think about the passengers who boarded MH370, expecting an ordinary flight, never imagining their journey would become the greatest mystery in aviation history. Their families still wait for answers, still hope for truth, still want closure. And maybe one day, with new technology or renewed searches, we will finally discover the truth. What do you think really happened to MH370? Was it a deliberate act, a hijacking gone wrong, or a tragic accident that doomed everyone on board? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this is not just a story about an airplane. It is about 239 people who vanished, and a mystery that continues to haunt the entire world.